We would like to start a press conference by Foreign Minister Hayashi. Please have the floor.
I have two things that I would like to discuss. First, regarding Camp Hansen border control measures enhancement. 2 days ago, I communicated to the commander of the U.S. forces in Japan. Since then, through our exchange with the U.S. forces in Japan, regarding all of the facilities and areas of the U.S. forces in Japan, we were able to confirm several things which I will now report to you. The U.S. forces had 14 days of movement restrictions after entering into Japan before, but on October the 1st this year, as the period of restrictions were changed to 10 days in Japan, on October the 1st, similarly, the U.S. forces changed the period of movement restrictions to 10 days on the condition that the personnel is vaccinated. Since then, the period was extended back to 14 days in Japan on December the 1st, and the U.S. forces extended the period back to 14 days on December the 20th. Regarding the testing at the time of departure from the United States, tests were carried out before, but with the advances of vaccination in the U.S. forces and lowering of infection cases globally, based on the policy of Department of Defense, it was confirmed that the testing was exempted on September the 3rd. In regards to this issue, based on my representations 2 days ago, the U.S. forces are once again decided to conduct testing before departure, changing its policy immediately. In any case, the U.S. forces are strengthening measures in light of the resurgence of cases globally going forward to ensure consistency of the U.S. measures with Japanese measures. Coordination between Japan and the U.S. will be further reinforced. The second point, today, the government of Japan has decided to provide humanitarian assistance to address humanitarian crisis in Syria and neighboring countries, and as humanitarian assistance to internally displaced people in north of Ethiopia, totaling 41.35 million in emergency grant aid, of which 28.95 million will go to Syria and its neighbors, and 12.4 million to Ethiopia. Due to prolonged fighting, society and economy are fatigued in Syria and its neighboring countries, including Lebanon and Jordan. In these countries, the rise of COVID-19 cases are putting pressure on medical resources, leading to further deterioration of humanitarian conditions. Under the circumstances, with the emergency granting aid to these countries through international organizations, clothing and other necessities, food, water, sanitation, and health services will be provided. Japan aims to improve the humanitarian conditions of Syria and other countries through these aids, and to help advance political process under the United Nations. And to solve a Syrian crisis, Japan will continue to work closely with the international community. In Ethiopia, Ethiopian National Defense Force and Tigray People's Liberation Front are engaged in prolonged armed conflict, resulting further deterioration of humanitarian conditions. Therefore, this time, Japan will be providing necessities and food to Ethiopia through aid. Japan intends to continue to cooperate with the international community for the peace and stability in Ethiopia. That concludes my opening remarks. If you have questions, please raise your hand, and when you're named, please go to the microphone stand and start. Abe-san, please.
This is Abe of the Yomiuri Shimbun. As introduced, regarding the Camp Hansen, I would like to confirm the following points. 2 days ago, the day before yesterday, you contacted with the U.S. forces and to ask for further strengthening of the measures taken. At that time, among the members who are working on the Camp Hansen, at the time of departure from the United States, those people were not tested, and immediately after entry into Japan, testing was not conducted. And for other forces located in Japan, it has been clarified that the measures were similar taken for other forces located in Japan as well. Is this correct? Yes, as I have said at the outset, all the U.S. forces in Japan facilities and all bases and facilities are mentioned. And to the day before yesterday, we contacted the commander, and because of the resurgence of the infection, in order to strengthen the measures at the entry or points, at points of entry for all the U.S. forces facilities in Japan, we ask for the coordination and adjustment to be made in order to prevent the gaps in the measures taken at the forces. And as a follow-up question, Abe of the Yomiuri Shimbun speaking. So far, the U.S. side, regarding the departure and entry, the U.S. has continued to explain that they were taking the measures which are consistent with the measures taken in Japan, but that was wrong. So could you please take us your view on that? Yesterday, I also mentioned this. I strongly expressed our regression to Commander Rapp yesterday. So going forward, the measures taken on the U.S. side will be kept consistent with the measures taken in Japan in order to, we believe that we have to strengthen our coordination with them.
Next question. Nobira-san, please. I'm Nobira from Asahi newspaper. Question for clarification. In Camp Hansen, during the period of movement restrictions, I understand that it was possible to move freely between the facilities. In other U.S. bases, was the condition similar to Camp Hansen? And the testing at the time of departure and entry, is this antigen testing? The details will be explained by the officials, but measures need to be consistent with Japanese measures. And Japanese measure is to test with antigen test at the time of entry. And based on these premises, the measures need to be consistent. Any other questions?
Azahari-san, please.
Sorry, Minority News, Arab News Japan. I would like to ask about the impact of corona pandemic on Japan's dignitary exchanges face-to-face with world leaders and also Middle East leaders that are not seen very often recently. Many visits have been and still being cancelled by Japanese officials to foreign countries. I'm wondering how this trend is impacting Japan's foreign policy, and is it going to be to remain in the future at the mercy of Corona? Thank you.
今般のコロナ情勢がですね、
Regarding the recent pandemic impact on the foreign policies, regarding the impact of the pandemic on the Japan's diplomacy, well, I would like to refrain from making any comments with presupposition. Based upon that, last month I became a foreign minister, and a little more than 1 month has I have already had a meeting with 27 countries and regions with my counterparts through the in-person and in TV and teleconferencing, and in order to establish the trust relationship. And last week, and I had conducted a meeting in total of 40 times, and including the G7 foreign ministers and development ministers. Last week we had a meeting, including the plenary meeting held in the UK, and in cooperation with G7 countries sharing the fundamental values, and the significance of cooperation to lead the international community has been confirmed again. So in that sense, by having the meeting in person with those counterparts, by spending time to have an in-depth discussion in order to deepen our understanding mutually, and there is a significance of doing so. And at the same time, given the pandemic's constraint, we needed to come up with wise ways in order to maximize the diplomacy effective manner. So we would like to continue to consider the infection control measures of countries, including Japan, in order to respond appropriately.
Next question, please. Okano from NHK about the U.S. forces. I have a detailed question. After entry into Japan, immediately after the entry, the testing was not carried out in all of the U.S. forces facilities and areas. And this time, Ministry of Foreign Affairs came to regard the inconsistency in measures. Is that because of the absence of testing at the time of the departure and entry? Please check with our officials for details, but the three things that you've mentioned centrally, and there are also some other detailed issues. But as I stated 2 days ago, we found the measures by the U.S. forces in Japan to be not consistent with measures in Japan. Next question, please.
Obida of the Asahi Shimbun speaking. On the 21st, I think that you contacted the Commander Brapp upon the instruction from Prime Minister Kishida, and have you already contacted the other forces in Japan as well of the United States? Based upon the result of confirmation of the situation, and once again, from Mr. Ichikawa, the Director General of the North American Affairs Bureau, expressed a strong regret to U.S. forces in Japan regarding my direct contact, and before and after my direct contact, through our working level officials, we have kept contacting the U.S. forces Japan.
Are there any other questions? Yes. Good morning. Hamamoto from IWG. Regarding diplomatic policy, I have a question. At the regular press conference on December 21, for 5 years, from 2022 to 2026, for the support expense for stationing of forces by the United States in Japan, the amount was 1,055.1 billion, increase of 75 billion yen was explained by Minister Hayashi. Japan is issuing record high deficit bond and is in a very difficult fiscal condition. The yawning of the curves is growing, and given this condition, why should Japan continue to support stationing of forces by U.S. in Japan? Japan is under a difficult fiscal condition, and if this deteriorates, Japan will lose market. And can you imagine ways to improve the situation? Regarding security environment surrounding Japan, the security environment is becoming more and more difficult. A U.S.-Japan alliance and U.S. forces in Japan are playing important role for defense of Japan and for peace and stability of Indo-Pacific. They are indispensable, and effective agreement was reached for budget to enhance alliance resilience. And this is to increase responsiveness of Japan's defense and to help forward the deployment of U.S. forces. And this assists not only U.S. forces in Japan, but responsiveness of Japanese self-defense forces, and will also facilitate interoperability of the two countries' defense forces and U.S. forces. And this was done in view of the fiscal condition of Japan, which is difficult in a selective fashion, and believe is an appropriate level.
This is Maeda of Kyodo, and please respond to my question about the assets. And I believe that the cabinet members' assets will be disclosed. And could you please give us your view and on this system? This system's purpose is to have an oversight on the illicit embezzlement during the tenure. Regarding the assets, I do not think that this is carries the nature of a comparison with others. Therefore, I do not have any particular comment on this. Regarding the asset disclosure system itself, this is intended to secure the trust of the people towards the politics as well as the administration of the government. So as a politician, and as well as those in the positions of the official duties, such as the ministers of a state, I would like to respond to this system appropriately in line with the purpose.
Abe-san, please. I am Abe from Yomiuri newspaper. Prime Minister Kishida, in his speech 2 days ago, said that diplomacy based on realism is pursued by Kochikai, and a new age of diplomacy based on realism is to be pursued. According to his speech, Mr. Hayashi, as foreign minister, what is your vision of diplomacy based on realism, and how do you plan to implement this? Prime Minister Kishida and I grew as a politician in Kochikai together, and Kochikai advocates diplomacy based on diplomacy, and that is the backbone. And environment is becoming more and more complex in the 21st century, and we are bearing the banner for the ideal in the future, and would like to deploy diplomacy where Japan is taking initiative. And I understand that that is what Prime Minister Kishida means, the new age of diplomacy based in realism. And in his speech, Prime Minister Kishida said that Ohira diplomacy was important in normalizing relationship between the U.S. and Japan, and the PKO diplomacy by Prime Minister Miyazawa was also mentioned as an example. And as a foreign minister in Kishida cabinet, with the core of U.S.-Japan alliance, I would like to focus on trust to Japan by the world, and three: strong determination to thoroughly protect universal values, strong determination to thoroughly protect peace and stability of Japan, and strong determination to face global scale challenges and lead international community. And in a responsive fashion, in low gravity attitude, we would like to engage in diplomacy and security policy that is resolute and to protect the people of Japan. And I believe that this will also lead to diplomacy based in realism. Any other questions?
This is Bunka Hoso. Yesterday, I believe that you have already explained this, but once again, the Vice Governor of Yamaguchi Prefecture was found to be in violation of the public officials election law. That was reported. Could you please give us your take on this matter again? I think I mentioned on this matter yesterday, but regarding my own election, there was a case which was referred to the public prosecutor's office. This is regrettable, and I feel sorry about this by causing this confusion and causing this concern to all the people who have supported me. Therefore, I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize for that. Are there any questions?